The meeting of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority, Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. Susan, can we have a roll call?
Absolutely. Michael Barthelme.
Here.
Alex Deek. Here. Bob Gunsel.
Here.
Tyler Kinley.
Here.
Ray Clough. Here. Howard Lazarus.
Here.
Jessica Letow. Molly McFarland. Darren McKinnon.
Present.
Rishi Narayan. Keith Orr.
Here.
Phil Weiss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First on the agenda is welcome to our new DDA board members. So in alphabetical order, first of all, Micah Barthelme, and if you could just, even though I introduced you, if you could introduce yourself and just your connection to downtown.
Absolutely. My name's Micah Barthelme. I grew up here in Ann Arbor. I'm the CEO of Bar Star Group, and we own and manage several properties and businesses in the DDA district. Glad to be here.
That's plenty. Thank you. And Alex Deek.
That's right. Alex Deek. I live in Ann Arbor. I work at Bodman. I'm an attorney. I do a lot of corporate work and real estate work, but work right downtown here. So happy to be here as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining us. Next are a couple of resolutions, and since we are introducing new board members, it's because we have a couple who are stepping off. And as much as everyone knows how much I love short meetings, I'm going to read these because I think it's important to recognize them for our vast viewing audience. The first one is a resolution thanking John Lowenstein, which I'd like to move. Do I have a second?
Support.
Support by Bob. So, whereas John Lowenstein joined the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority Board in 2007 and served for 3 full terms, ending her service in 2019. Whereas Joan Lowenstein has been a highly valued and active DDA member, serving on nearly every committee, with special importance given to her service as longtime chair or co-chair of the Partnerships Committee, where she helped guide DDA efforts in support of DDA grants and development partnerships. Whereas Joan Lowenstein's leadership in support of affordable housing was particularly noteworthy, as over $4 million in DDA housing grants were approved by the DDA during her board tenure. Whereas Joan Lowenstein ably took on other leadership roles throughout her time on the DDA, including serving on the executive committee and serving as DDA chair in fiscal year 2011. Whereas Joan Lowenstein's keen intelligence, political acumen, and legal expertise were regularly leaned on during DDA discussions and decisions. And whereas Joan Lowenstein's warmth and remarkable commitment to the DDA and its mission will be sorely missed, and her devotion to the downtown and community is an inspiration to all who have had the good fortune to work beside her, resolved the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority on behalf of the downtown and the community thanks Joan Lowenstein for her great service and abundant contributions to the downtown and indeed to the community as a whole through her work on the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. Any discussions or anything anyone would like to say? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Similarly, John Mowat. Whereas John Mowat joined the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority Board in 2007, bringing with him a wealth of knowledge about buildings and design, as well as the experience of being a downtown business owner and a near downtown resident. Whereas John Mowat has a passion for cities and transportation, and he often brought information about exciting, innovative, and disruptive technology changes that will influence city infrastructure and mobility, including the emergence of connected, autonomous, and electric vehicles. Whereas John Mowat took on important leadership roles throughout his time on DDA, including chairing the Capital Improvements Committee, serving on the Executive Committee and Operations Committee, and serving as DDA Board Chair in fiscal year 2012. Whereas John Mowat championed transformational street design, including advocating for the 5th and Detroit Improvement Project, which dramatically demonstrated how pedestrian safety can be improved and sustainability goals supported through thoughtful, value-driven design. Whereas John Mowat compellingly advocated for initiatives such as anti-idling legislation and education, encouraging shared use mobility options, and building partnerships in support of creating more downtown affordable housing. Whereas John Mowitt's thoughtful big picture approach and remarkable commitment to the DDA and its mission will be sorely missed, and his devotion to the downtown and community is an inspiration to all who have had the good fortune to work beside him. Resolved, the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority, on behalf of the downtown and the community, thanks John Mowat for his great service and abundant contributions to the downtown, and indeed to the community as a whole, through his work on the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. Did I ask for, I did not. I'll move that, sorry. Second?
Second.
Second from Phil. Any discussion or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. John did send a quick thank you note that I'd like to, he asked me to read. I want to thank the current and past DDA staff, board members, and consultants for the opportunity to serve with them in the adventure of creating a better Ann Arbor. Over my 12 years of being on the board, I've had the opportunity to work with many committed and talented people who have maintained the best interests of our community at the heart of their work. In particular, I would urge current and future board members to maintain a high level of openness, mutual respect, tenacity, and maybe most importantly, sense of humor in the work that you do. My great thanks to the staff and Susan in particular for their commitment and talents in supporting our downtown. Best of luck moving forward. John. P.S. I'm always available for a coffee or lunch if you want to chat, or even better, a beer. John. Moving on, we have an agenda in front of us which we need to approve. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. Audience participation. No one's currently signed up. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Oh, that's different. All right. Let's see. Reports from city boards and commissions. Ray Detter. Set up your 4 minutes.
I want to announce that I am using someone else's glasses. God knows what I might say. We started the meeting last night with people reporting on meetings they had attended this month. There's lots of them. Several have provided feedback at another citizen review meeting for the Standard, the proposed project on Main and William. A lot of controversy on that one. The design has been updated, including providing a better setback from the sidewalk and a wide alley. The concerns remain about the project's appearance. And the project will now go back to the design review board on November 13th for its 3rd review. The group also talked about affordable housing. There are questions about the proposed zoning change that received its first reading at City Council last night. There are also questions about why developers are not including affordable housing in their projects. We all look forward to Jennifer Hall's report to City Council later this month on the potential to construct affordable housing on several city-owned sites, including some in downtown. Much of the meeting was given over to Susan Polly so she could present the DDA's 2019 State of Downtown report. That's this document and a lot more, which we saw on screen last night. Very impressive. Much of the meeting was given over, as I said, to Susan Polly's report. The document includes a wealth of information about downtown, including downtown residential demographics. And it also includes information about the DDA's very important work, including its people-friendly streets projects. As we have in the past, the Citizens Advisory Council will cancel its December meeting. That's the next meeting. Instead, on that evening, we welcome CAC, Citizens Advisory Council members and near downtown residents to my house for a holiday dinner. In addition to good food and conversation, we always leave time for everyone to announce their wishes for Ann Arbor on the coming year. After 3 rounds of drinks, that gets pretty impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. communications. Of course, normally I would look over to Jessica, but I don't have any communication from her, so look for any announcements from her about her usual downtown meetings. Anyone else? All right, moving on. Executive Director Communications. Susan.
Thank you. And I want to draw your attention to the sign behind Keith. We are thrilled that the Michigan chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects awarded our very own Amber Miller the 2019 Michigan ASLA President's Honor Award, which is given to a non-landscape architect that displays leadership and dedication to making great spaces and having a positive community impact. As our capital and private projects manager, Amber has led us in our consultants as we've designed and constructed our major streetscape and other right-of-way projects. So many of these projects have been transformative, and all of them support city, DDA, and community goals, including improving pedestrian safety, sustainability, mobility, and equity. And I'm very proud that we have an opportunity to recognize Amber for having won this recognition. Please join me. I know she's going to get me later, but that's okay. The second item, I'm going to ask Jada if you wouldn't mind joining us as our FOIA coordinator. We've received a FOIA appeal, and I'd like if Jada could lead through the information.
So I am passing around copies of a FOIA request and appeal. A FOIA request was received by Mr. Biametti on Tuesday, October 15th, in which he requested the wait list for several of the parking garages. On October 18th, the DDA granted the request with certain redactions. Names were provided, but addresses, phone numbers, and emails were redacted pursuant to Section 13 of FOIA as information of a personal nature, the disclosure of which would constitute an invasion of privacy. An appeal was received by Mr. Biametti on October 21st. The appeal requested that records with a business name, email, or business postal address be disclosed. Under the state statute and our own DDA FOIA policy, appeals are made to the head of the agency, which is you, the board. Although our decision to initially redact the content was an appropriate discretionary decision, it's my recommendation that the DDA board grant the appeal and disclose the records which we believe to be associated with a business. Today we're looking for a decision from you, the board. Your options today are to deny the appeal or to grant the appeal and disclose the records associated with a business.
So records associated with the business mean business address, business email address, business name, those sorts of things, or just business email addresses?
He is asking for, if you look at
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. So he's saying on redact and disclose all records which meet the following criteria. Records with a business name, which we provided the names initially, and then records with an email, business email, or business address.
So the additional information would just be the emails and the postal address associated with the business that he's already provided.
Yes, he does not mention phone numbers here, so.
I guess my concern on it is that when we set this up, it was just simply a tool for the person managing. I believe even predating when you started doing that. So it was just done as a way of being able to keep track of the list. So it's not divided up specifically as business requests, personal requests. And while some may be obvious if the requestor is ABC company, then it's obvious it's a business. But if the requestor is Frank, and Frank's email address is frank@abc.com, that I don't think that we can necessarily think that that's done as a business request. A lot of people use their work email address as their primary,
Or is their only email
or
address?
perhaps their only email address, right? So I guess I'm a little concerned because even though we could make some decisions that it would be discretionary on someone's part as to deciding what's a business record and what isn't. And I just feel like the privacy concerns outweigh us being put in the position of making those discretionary decisions. But that's my feeling. Others?
Well, I agree with that. I think the problem would be the appearance of acting arbitrarily. If you have someone who's a sole proprietor and there's no separation between their personal and their business information, I don't know how you justify disclosing some but not the other. And as long as the position you've taken before is legally justified, I don't know what the value is to releasing that other information.
Other thoughts, comments?
I agree with what others have said here. I think it's probably worth a further discussion at the operations committee about maybe redoing how we handle the wait list in light of this discussion and these requests, and reformatting it in such a way that it's available on our website or however we want to do it, and maybe ultimately can get Mr. Biametti what he's asking for, just not at this time in this format.
I completely agree. I think this is a good opportunity for us to look at that list in a lot of respects in terms of how we manage it, let alone how it's formatted. Because clearly it was originally never intended to produce this information in this way.
I agree with Howard in that I don't know that this body is the one that should be deciding, yep, this one is and this one isn't. I just don't think that that is our role. So.
Any other discussion? In which case we need to take action. So I guess the way I will put it is the choice is either accept the appeal or decline the appeal. All in favor of accepting the appeal, i.e. we will provide him as he requests, say aye. All who would like to decline it, nay?
Nay.
Nay. The nays have it. Thank you, Jada.
Two other items just to bring to your attention. On page 25, we lay out the calendar for next year. You'll notice toward the end and beginning of the year, as we did this year, we have holidays, so we're making a note and we might need to make changes to the standard schedule. Typically, however, the board meets at noon on the first Wednesday of the month here at DDA. The executive committee will meet at 11 o'clock here, the first Wednesday of the month. Partnerships generally is the second Wednesday at 9 a.m. here at DDA. The capital improvements committee generally is the third Wednesday at 11 here at DDA. Operations committee is the last Wednesday of the month at 11 here at DDA. And finance is the last Thursday of the month at 1 here at DDA. Those are generally the schedule for the coming year. And then the last item I have for you is we received a request from the city that they're assembling items for policy discussion relating to items maybe of big significance for the city. I'm going to ask Howard to speak to it. We have a policy agenda committee, and much of the work that happens between the cities and our representatives in Lansing come from items that this committee is formulating as items of concern. And we've been asked as a policy board if we have other items that we would like to bring to this group to present to Lansing for opportunities for change. And I don't have anything specific to recommend, just to put it on your agenda or thinking about it. And maybe as we meet as committees in the near future, we'll ask that question as part of the agenda. And with that, I am done. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. The minutes of all the various October meetings are on pages 3 through 21. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Approved.
And let's see, support over here. Any discussion, amendments? All in favor of approval? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Subcommittee reports. We're going to go first to Phil Weiss and the Operations Committee.
Thank you, Keith. First item on my agenda is to move a resolution encouraging the Michigan Theaters Foundation their pursuit of a bridge connecting Liberty Square to the Michigan Theater building. And I would ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you. Michigan Theater seeks to build a bridge connecting the theater to the Liberty Square parking structure so they can utilize an abandoned fan room for administrative offices. This resolution is in your packet on page 26. It's important to note that, number one, there's precedent for this. There have been a number of connections between parking garages and adjacent buildings, such as the Maynard Garage, First in Washington, and Fourth in Washington. So we've done this before, but it's important also to note that we're not asking for an approval of this project. We're just asking for this. I think Russ Collins, who's here in the audience, wants our support as he goes to the city for approval. So this is just an encouraging, gentle push, I guess, that Russ has asked us for. A final plan will be brought back to the DDA for approval. The theater must also get approved from the city and other Liberty Square condominium and the other Liberty Square condominium owner, which we're familiar with. So, with that, again, we're introducing this resolution. I'd like to open it up for discussion, and Russ is here to answer questions if you have any. Howard?
So I'd like to recuse myself from the vote since I'm on the other end of the approval process.
Understood. Any other discussion or questions?
I appreciate the fact that they came and asked so that we could be very well aware of it. That was nice.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual room, and this will be much better use of the space.
We want to see the room, actually.
And as Russ can tell you, there's no easy way to get there otherwise, so unless you're good at climbing ladders and such.
Since we're encouraging this, do we get naming rights on the bridge? Right.
It's added into the resolution. Consider it.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
There you go, Russ.
Thank you.
I have a second resolution that I'd like to move, a resolution to make repairs to the Maynard Central Elevator door. And I'd like a second on that, please.
Second.
Thank you. We've had a lot of service calls to the elevator at Maynard. Working with our contractor, Schindler Elevator, they recommend replacement of the door operating hardware in the central elevator at Maynard. The cost for this project is $63,915. This money would come from the DDA Parking Maintenance Fund. Any discussion or questions or comments on this?
I have a question. Is this something that is regular where you would expect it at this time, or is there any kind of unusual wear and tear happening that we need to think about?
I think it's the most used, right? It's the busiest.
So it is a very busy elevator, and in that lobby outside of the RPS office and in that stairwell, there's a lot of moisture. So I don't think we got the life out of the previous door hardware that we expected. So this time we are opting to go with a water-resistant door hardware package where some of the components are built for more of what is essentially an outdoor space. So
What's the expected lifetime of this?
So this would be 15 to 20 years. And in making this upgrade, if we did in the future any modernization of that elevator, it could reuse this door hardware. So it won't be lost money.
You might just want to hang out right there for a couple minutes if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because,
Other question?
oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say other discussion. Questions for Jada? I guess not.
We have to vote.
Yep. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Why are you making?
I'm
us
torturing
smile?
Jada because next on my agenda is the parking and transportation report, which is in your packet. And if you had any questions, Jada would be available to answer them. I think that they start on page 31. I'm sure you've all read through these. Any discussion, questions?
And just a quick note for our new members, this used to be like reported out, and we turned it into a written report about a year and a half ago, something like that. And it's a great time saver and well worth reading to keep up on what's going on. But I don't think we need the time to go through it piece by piece unless there's specific questions.
Thank you, Jada. Next on my list, the Ann Ashley Expansion and Improvement Project. As we all probably know, the project to add parking to the Ann Ashley garage was not approved by City Council. However, the Operations Committee decided to move forward with scheduled repair work that had been included in the larger project and to take time to discuss other next steps for this. So that's basically just a reporting item. I don't think we have a sense yet for how much these repairs are going to be, but that's to be determined. So it's just repair work that needs to happen. So an update on the Maynard Customer Service Administrative Office. The committee has directed the staff to develop a plan that does not expand the office westward, so no grade changes as we go westward in the garage, but does expand into the Maynard Central lobby area, Maynard Central elevator lobby area, and includes a change to the bathrooms that would only be accessible from the inside of the office. So we're waiting, I think, from our contractor on for bids on that or ideas. So stay tuned for more information on that. We talked about curbs. First of all, any questions or comments on Ann Ashley or Maynard before we go forward? Sorry about that. We talked about curbs. Amber and Jada gave presentations on some conferences they attended recently. Key takeaways from those discussions included the importance of shaping a curb management plan, given all the new mobility and commercial demands that we have in the city. The committee is supportive of their idea that the Operations and Capital Improvements Committee share a project to create a block-by-block DDA district curb plan. There was also direction that this plan include the right-of-way. The DDA's downtown street design manual will be updated and included in this process. Did I miss anything there? Is there any questions, comments? We also talked about the DDA parking principles. In light of the discussion at the recent work session, staff shared a copy of the parking principles developed over 20 years ago to manage the parking system. There was consensus that these principles still have value, and I believe those are in the notes in the committee packet, and recommended additions were also offered up. So pretty robust discussions coming there, I believe. That's all I have, other than to announce that our next Operations Committee meeting is Wednesday, November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving at 11 a.m. here at the DDA office. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Finance Committee, Bob.
Thank you. I'd first like to start out by moving the resolution to accept the 2019 DDA audit and ask for a second.
Support.
Our auditors, Yo and Yo, went through the audit in great detail with the committee. And the good news is that it's a clean audit. Just about each section, the auditors told us that we were in compliance, and obviously that was great news. The auditors also noted Sarah's excellent work in preparing materials and responding requests for information. The smoothness of the audit process was particularly noteworthy because Sarah had only recently joined the DDA staff in April, and obviously for an organization that as large as ours, and the importance of the financial audit really cannot be undervalued. This was a very important point for them, and they wanted to bring it up. So I appreciate any comments or questions you have about the audit. And Sarah would be happy to answer those.
Can we create a poster for Sarah as well, equally the size of Amber's, and maybe also made by the same
something, yeah.
kidnapper that made that one?
So the committee does recommend that we approve the resolution.
All right. Any other comments?
I just want to say that it's been really refreshing to have Sarah in the Finance Committee meetings. It's interesting, you know, anytime you have a big change like Joe to somebody, that's a big change. but Sarah's really has a good spirit, and she's come up with some really interesting improvements and ways that we do things, just from having a fresh set of eyes. And so they were really good input, and I'm excited about the direction of the finance.
Excellent. All right, all in favor of approving the resolution to accept the DDA fiscal year 2019 financial audit? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Accepted.
The monthly expense registers and first quarter financial statements were reviewed. They're included in the board packet. The committee discussed the recommendation to consolidate the DDA's 4 investment accounts at the Bank of Ann Arbor to decrease the number of transfers between accounts. The committee supports this change because there doesn't appear to be any benefit to keeping the accounts separated, and instead there are many benefits from consolidating them, including providing better internal controls and greater efficiency. So again, Sarah's here to answer any questions. Our next meeting is Wednesday, November 20th at 1 p.m.
And that is 1 week earlier than usual for those keeping score.
because of the holiday.
Right. All right, thank you, Bob. Capital improvements, which is co-chaired by 2 people not here today, so I turn it over to Howard Lazos.
Thank you. Focus on the report is really on the people-friendly streets projects. And as we go into it, I just want to thank the DDA staff, particularly Amber, Liz, for their work on getting projects moved quickly and efficiently and producing high-quality results. To go a little out of order, one of my favorites is the 5th and Detroit project, which is now essentially complete and has had remarkable impact on improving pedestrian safety and contributing to a sense of place between community high and farmers market. So you can see that even the most hardened drivers have softened their hearts and are actually stopping for pedestrians at a high rate there. So it was a great project, an example of what can happen when people don't settle for less than what they can get. First and Ashley is also a favorite that's coming up. We'll build on the success of the William Street bikeway. It's a two-way, as you know, it's one-way, two-way conversion. The details were updated and finalized when they're presented to the committee. The DDA will go out for bids probably late this month or early December. One of the conversations that we had in relation to that project with others is how can we open up to get more interest in projects, to get better competition, and hopefully better pricing. So there were some means and methods addressed to do that. This project will go to council over the coming months to approve both the cost share agreement so that the construction contract can be approved and awarded in early May. So hopefully we can get most of it done over 2 construction seasons. By the way, that project too, a lot of credit to the DDA staff as well as city staff. It had a tremendous amount of input and community support. Well over 90% of the people surveyed supported the conversion and some of the innovative treatments that are going to go in on that. William Street, we had a great celebration on October 27th for the ribbon cutting. It brought together all people of different backgrounds and thoughts to celebrate opening up a protected bikeway. The other part of the project, the contractor's paving between Main and First Street this week. They'll mark. Sometimes pavement markings this time of the year are done as a temporary measure because of the temperatures, and they'll be made permanent next year. But again, great project, and one that starts to serve as a connection from all the way down by the river all the way up through downtown. Huron Street will be finished next construction season. Contractor paved the south side of the street last week. There's been some patching done on the north side. The street light installation will actually not only provide decorative lighting, but it will improve the reliability of lighting in an area where we've had a significant and historic problem with outages, as those have new circuits and they become city lights as opposed to DTE lights. But that last block will be done next year. Other aspects of that project include a dedicated left turn signal from Huron onto Division, which will improve safety as well as movement of vehicles. So that's exciting as well. I think that was all that was on the list. I do want to go back to the Ann and Ashley garage. There is the ability to bring that back to council. Some of the concerns really were about parking policy more than they were about the garage, and I'm working with the council members to address those. So I wouldn't give up on that project. I think everyone recognizes that we're going to have a shortage of parking spaces in the intermediate term, and we need to make the math work. So it's been delayed, but there are a lot of, I think, good things that'll come out of the discussion until we bring it back as well. So that's the capital improvements program committee meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Amber, they are they are paving as we speak in this 30-degree weather. Is there any concern that this asphalt will be at all compromised in paving in this cold weather?
That is not my understanding.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask our engineer.
Oh,
to
sorry.
if that's okay with you.
So there is requirements on temperature, and I think, I'm pretty sure, but it's usually it's surface temperature, so it has to be like 35 and rising, the actual surface that you're paving on. And
Okay.
sometimes, the asphalt retains heat,
Sure.
so it can be warmer than the air temperature. So, but we have inspectors that make sure
Okay.
that we're paving within the temperature specifications.
Just curious. I would
Yeah.
hate to see this pavement only last a couple of years.
Yeah, no, if it gets much colder, then
Yeah.
we can't pave, which is why the asphalt plants typically shut down mid-November.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've got one more layer going Saturday, which is supposed to be, I think, 4 weeks.
Okay.
So I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Just curious.
I do want to add one other project, city project scheduled for next year is utility work and repaving of South U between State and East U. Will have an impact on Art Fair, but it's a large major project that I'm sure will inconvenience everybody, but in the end, it will be a great improvement.
All right. And the next meeting?
Next meeting is Wednesday, November 20th at 11 a.m. Certainly a must attend event, so be there and be seen.
All right. Thank you for pinch hitting. Moves on to Partnerships Economic Development Committee. Tyler.
Over here.
Over there.
Yeah, it was a great meeting. We had two presentations presented to us. One was from Michael Smith and Oliver Kiley from the Smith Group, and we paid $100 of the $150,000 consultation cost. The city did the rest, and they were hired in order to facilitate public engagement towards realizing what people really want and the opinions around the Y lot and 415 West Washington. So this was them approaching us as a community stakeholder, saying, what do you think? And so, it was a lively discussion. It was good back and forth. A lot of what we talked about was really just ensuring that that everyone's concerns are seen as legitimate. Both those who are worried about density and those who really want density, and all the places in between. Listening with sort of an open mind and open heart, and that these will be challenging lots to have everyone agree on what happens. From some perspective, density would offer a lot of the, I guess, consensus goals that people want for downtown, but for some people that's a threat to the character. So it was just a good sort of conversation with a lot of different sort of perspectives being brought. And then after that, there were some reps from the center of the city task force that came, and that was a similar presentation where they approached the DDA and those partnerships committee and just sort of said, we want to talk to you about your thoughts and your feelings about the center of the city. What's our take? But what was interesting was a lot of the presentation, they used all of their time, and we sort of continued after because the conversation just led into the half hour basically after the meeting. A lot of it was them presenting on the history of the block and really walking through from when it was first zoned and parceled, which were larger parcels to provide a different type of use than the surrounding areas. It was a civic center, and then over time and over decades that use changed, and walking through those physical changes, but also walking through some of the previous planning processes over, again, the decades, and what they saw and what they proposed. And what was really interesting is a lot of the historic proposals from information gathering, from public engagement, said this would be a great space for a public commons, some sort of civic commons meeting area, but that it also include a mixture of uses, buildings. And so it was an interesting thing to have that presentation basically sum up a lot of the history, and then the discussion after that is, what do you think now? And basically we had the proposal A get passed, and so they're sort of trying to figure out what people think while having denied a previous mixed-use development in favor of a civic commons of some sort. So the representatives from the Center of the City Task Force was interesting because they were incredibly receptive to any opinions. They were very nonpartisan. They just want to figure out what people think and do their best to represent what they hear. So that part was neat. There was no nudging in any direction. But what was interesting is that during their presentation, thankfully Susan was there, so she was able to actually give a lot more background about the process and the physical aspects of that park structure underneath, the previous notions for connections, and sort of add to their historical knowledge and knowledge of what's currently there. Yeah, that's a lot, but it was a lot of good discussion. It's going to be fascinating to see what they end up doing, because it seemed like they were not exactly sure at all where they were going to end up or what product might come out of it, but they're asking the right questions. So yeah, it was good. If anybody wants to come to those partnership meetings, they're starting to be pretty interesting with a lot of the sort of current things that are going on right now. Speaking of that, next one is next Wednesday. Yes. This says next Wednesday, December 11th.
November 13th.
November 13th.
15th, I'm seeing the wrong one. Oh yeah. This next Wednesday, that's with all the partners. And one of the things that we changed with the Partnerships Committee is that we're not only sort of getting all the updates, but we're trying to have more of a singular focus at each meeting. So the sort of thrust of the next meeting is speaking on mobility and having that be sort of an overarching theme that we tie in. I know Matt Carpenter's likely going to present on that a little bit. So yeah, come on out if you can.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Last committee report is from me, the executive committee. We met, as we always do, 1 hour before this board meeting. And basically, we just reviewed the agenda, which is our usual mode of operation. And our next committee meeting will, again, be 1 hour before the full board meeting, next December 4th, Wednesday at 11 a.m. And I would like to just sort of continue on that point about the committee meetings. We have a pretty full packet here, and not much left to go. We're going to get this done in under an hour, it looks like. And one of the reasons we do this is because of the amount of work we do in committees. And I just wanted to remind the public, those committee meetings are open to the public as well. So, a lot of times if I see some nodding over here from people who attend these meetings, and we can only do a little bit of a synopsis of some of these discussions, but if there are things of interest to you, that's definitely the time and the place to be able to get a lot of that information. With that, the only thing remaining, I believe, is of the... What's that? Oh, yeah. First new business, though, which is that we are required twice a year by the enabling legislation of DDAs to have informational meetings. And it doesn't really say exactly what that means, so we have interpreted that to be a short presentation about our current projects and mission. So that will be happening next month, just prior to the board meeting. So at noon we'll be starting with that and immediately after go into the regular board meeting. And you said you have a...
Yeah, I have one thing. For the new members, one of the things that has been the most helpful since I joined the DDA was the new DDA monthly report that Maura does. And so as a member of the DDA, I get asked a lot of questions all the time, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. So for all those people that ask me that question, as soon as I get that monthly DDA, I forward it to all of them. And they found it really, really helpful. So it's a great way to keep people up to date on what's going on because there's so much. And there's a lot of information there. And so I know it takes a while for something in marketing to catch on, but I feel like it's just a great piece of information.
I'll add it to the list.
Can we have a poster for Maura too?
Indeed.
I would be remiss, though, if I didn't thank Maura for all her work on the education component with William Street as well. Not just setting up the day of event, but everything leading up to that. Changes in patterns usually cause a lot of things to come out, and there's been almost no ill will that surfaced, and it helped that be the celebration that it was. So just a personal thanks as well.
Yes, kudos to the whole staff on that and all these projects. So, end of the meeting, we do have opportunity for other audience participation. Again, 4 minutes each.
Yes, David Depice. I'm going to speak briefly about the FOIA request that you had before you. From my perspective, you have personal information where you're emailing a representative of council or staff or whatever. That information clearly should be, have high privacy concerns. These people, the people that are requesting a parking permit, are asking to enter into, in some sense, a business relationship with the DDA. And from my perspective, that requires maybe a little more, they've given up some privacy when you're entering into a business relationship. So I hope your operations committee looks a little closely at what's available, what should be, information should be allowed and what not. It'd be interesting to maybe ask the city if somebody asked for who was renting park shelters, what kind of information they would give out for those. Emails is a difficult thing to what's right and what's wrong. I know if you go to a citizens participation meeting or an advisory committee meeting, they ask for your name and your address and your email. And if you put it down, that information will be available on the website or whatever they post those to. So it's a difficult issue, and I hope the operations committee takes a close look at how to handle these things in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Adam Oxner. I just want to very briefly say thanks for the protected bike lane on William Street. It's awesome. I've been using it, even though it's a little bit out of my way. And then also a little bit of feedback on it is because I know we've been painting a lot of, I know this isn't totally DDA, but there's been a lot of the green stripe painting happening around. And on the actual bike path, so on William Street, I don't know if anyone's got the chance to ride it, but the divots from the green paint, when they are in the, there's like a bunch of them in a row, kind of like a crosswalk, but it's green striped instead of white, gets kind of bumpy. It's not, obviously it's not a huge issue, but it's something maybe to think about as we go forward. And I'd much rather have bumps on my bike lane than my bike lane. So I'm very, again, thank you very much for it. Just a little bit of feedback. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Which brings us to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. We have support. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed?